Hello everybody, this is the fourth episode of Ike's Political Minute, and today I will be forecasting the outcome of the 2024 presidential election, if it is to be contested between Democrat Sherrod Brown and Republican Marco Rubio. And I would just find this to be a very interesting election prediction to make, just because these two candidates appeal to such different demographics. I mean, if you look at Sherrod Brown, he's just the perfect, and I mean perfect Democrat for Trump country. I mean, he's a populist, and he has a very liberal voting record, and yet somehow he manages to win consistently in a state that we deem to be purple or maybe even lean Republican. And Marco Rubio is basically the George W. Bush Republican that could easily win back several GOP constituencies that left with Trump. And I think that those people would easily come back with things like Christian values and just compassionate conservatism in general. And one more thing before I get started, I think that in this scenario, Donald Trump will have won re-election, and I am in no way saying that he will win re-election. Just, this is the only way that this scenario could actually happen, because Sherrod Brown is not likely to be the next president of the United States in 2020. And if we did have a Democratic president come 2020, it would likely be Joe Biden or somebody else like that, or Bernie Sanders. And they would likely keep the presidency throughout 2024 and not get primaried. And finally, last but not least, just so you guys know, there are only safe and toss-up settings in the 2024 map, so that's why you won't be seeing any likely lean or tilt ratings on this map. So without further ado, let's start going east to west. Now Maine, I think that Maine would easily go to Sherrod Brown, and that includes the 2nd Congressional District, and I just think that the 2nd Congressional District really is Democratic country that just flipped to Trump. I mean, John Kerry won it by double digits, Al Gore won it by double digits, Obama won it by double digits, and then Trump managed to win it by double digits, and Sherrod Brown being the perfect Democrat for Trump country, as I explained earlier, and this will be relevant very soon again in this video, I think that he can very easily get the job done and snag all 4 of its electoral votes. And I would say the same thing about New Hampshire. New Hampshire is already trending more Democratic. It has 2 Democratic senators, it has 2 Democratic representatives, and I don't see how the Republicans have a good standing in this state. And I think that Sherrod Brown would sweep the rest of these northeastern states. I don't really see how Marco Rubio could win any of these states, especially D.C. I mean, D.C. always votes Democrat. It's like a law of the universe. And I would say the same thing about the Rust Belt, too. I think that this really is Sherrod Brown's place to shine, especially in his home state of Ohio. And look, guys, you might be thinking that the Rust Belt is trending away from the Democrats, but they still have a massive white working class population that they can appeal to. And there's no better guy, and I mean no better guy, than Sherrod Brown to do it. And Indiana, I think that Indiana would be a state that Rubio would win handily, along with Missouri. These 2 states are very similar in how they vote, and I think that both of these states have been swinging hard away from the Democrats, and I really don't see how these states could be pulled off by the Democrats. I think that these states have become pretty solidly Republican. And I would say the same thing about Kentucky and West Virginia. I mean, you might be thinking that these states are Trump country and that Sherrod Brown could pull it off here, but just think about how climate change has become such a huge issue here. I mean, later on I'll be doing an issue about climate change and the policy that the US should pursue towards it, but the moment that the Democrats started to think that global warming is an inconvenient truth is when they inconveniently started to lose Kentucky and West Virginia. And Virginia, I think that Sherrod Brown could narrowly carry this. I understand that this is George W. Bush territory, and I definitely think that Marco Rubio could make the state more competitive, but just considering how much it swung towards the Democrats, I don't really think it could swing back. I mean, once a state has swung towards a party to a certain degree, it's not going back. I mean, California voted safely red, but the moment it trended Democrat, did it go Republican again? No, it did not. Which is why I am keeping Virginia in the Democratic column. However, I think that the Sun Belt would really be Marco Rubio's place to shine. I think that he would very easily carry the Southeast Corridor along with Florida. I think that he would take Florida overwhelmingly. he would also do very well in the Bible Belt. I think that this has become a strong Republican hold, especially with evangelicals and Trump. And the Red Wall, I think that Texas, Rubio could win by double digits. I think that he's their kind of guy. And the rest of these rural Red Wall states, I really don't think Sherrod Brown would have any real chance at winning. And, I'm just wondering which scenario is more plausible, the Democrats winning a Great Plains state / Red Wall state all throughout here, or the Republicans winning in the West Coast. I think that the Democrats have a very significant chance at winning Texas, and the GOP has a very significant chance at winning Oregon. But let's go onward with this forecast. So, I think that Rubio would have a very strong hold in the Mountain West, and that includes Utah. Utah is filled with people who don't necessarily like Trump, although plenty of places in Utah definitely like Trump. But just all can really be united behind conservatism. I mean, if you look at Utah, St. George is the fastest growing city in the United States. And once the Democrats establish a solid base in places like Salt Lake City and St. George, maybe they could have a better shot at winning. But it's not going to be that way right now. I think that Rubio would have a very strong presence and hold on this state. And Colorado, I think that Rubio could narrowly edge out this state. I think that this state, though it has taken a heavy turn towards the Democrats, I think that Rubio could really bring the Latino vote back to the Republicans in this state, and he really could do an excellent job here, and I think that he could make this state the Republican state that it once was. However, New Mexico, I still think would stay in the Democratic column. It was like I said with Virginia, once a state trends a certain way for a long enough time, it's not going to matter how favorable it is to a certain candidate, it'll just stay with the party. Which is why I think that New Mexico would narrowly stay with Sherrod Brown. Arizona, Marco Rubio would easily win. I think that the Latino voters would come out to him, and I think that he could once again make Maricopa County go to the GOP by a likely margin. I think that Marco Rubio would also win Nevada. I think that the Latino presence and also how Washoe County typically votes for traditional conservative people would land him a victory in this state. Hawaii and the rest of the West Coast, I think, would handily go to Sherrod Brown, which puts him over the top with 281 electoral votes. And in the state of Alaska, I think that would go handily to Marco Rubio. Oil is a big industry there, and I think that the Republicans have a pretty strong hold on the oil workers. And that finishes up our map with 257 electoral votes for Marco Rubio and 281 votes for Sherrod Brown. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all later.